Dark side of the nursery rhymes we all loved to sing as children. Ring around the rosy, ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. The children's voices rang out in the crisp autumn air, their laughter carrying across the fields. A circle of 6 danced hand in hand, their cheeks flushed with joy. The rhyme was familiar, comforting in its simplicity, a song their parents had sung to them since they were babies. None of them could have guessed it would soon become a dirge. It was Peter who found the book. The youngest of the group, he had been digging near the ruins of the old church, a crumbling relic that the village elders warned them to stay away from. But curiosity was a stubborn thing. As his small hands brushed away the dirt, his fingers struck something solid. "Look what I found," he called, holding up the object. It was a book. Its leather cover darkened with age and marked with the symbol of a rose encircled by thorns. The others crowded around him, their excitement tempered by unease. "It's just a book," said Annie, the oldest of the group, though her voice wavered. "Probably belongs to the church." "Then why was it buried?" asked Sarah, her wide eyes darting nervously toward the ruins. "Let's take it back to my house," Peter suggested. "We can look at it there." That night, the children gathered in Peter's dimly lit attic, the book resting between them like an uninvited guest. Its pages were yellowed and brittle, the words written in an elegant script that seemed to shift and writhe in the flickering candlelight. "Read something," urged Thomas, his usual bravado masking a hint of nervousness. Annie hesitated before turning to a page near the center of the book. Her eyes scanned the lines, and she smiled faintly. "It's a nursery rhyme," she said. "Ring around the rosy. We all know this one." "Read it out loud," said Sarah, hugging her knees to her chest. Annie began to read, her voice steady but soft. As she recited the familiar lines, the air in the attic seemed to grow heavier, the shadows in the corners deepening. When she finished, the candle sputtered violently, and for a moment, the room was plunged into darkness. The children gasped, their laughter nervous and uncertain as the flame steadied itself once more. "That was weird," muttered Thomas, forcing a grin. "Just the wind, right?" But it wasn't the wind. The next morning, Peter woke with a strange red rash circling his wrist, like a ring of roses. His mother dismissed it as an allergic reaction, rubbing salve on it and sending him off to play. But by midday, he was coughing uncontrollably, his small body racked with spasms. Soon, other villagers began to fall ill. Red, ring-shaped rashes appeared on their skin, followed by violent fits of coughing. The herbalists worked tirelessly, stuffing pockets with posies and hanging garlands of flowers around doorways, but nothing seemed to stop the spread. By the 3rd day, the whispers began. Soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The children heard them first, faint voices calling their names from the shadows. Sarah swore she saw a figure standing at the edge of the field, its form shrouded in mist. When she blinked, it was gone. "It's the book," Annie whispered, her face pale. "We shouldn't have read from it." "What do we do?" asked Thomas, his bravado now completely gone. Annie opened the book again, her hands trembling. The words on the page had changed, the rhyme replaced with new lines. "When the roses circle red, the plague of shadows wakes the dead. Ashes scatter, children cry, the cursed who read shall surely die." "It's a warning," Annie said, her voice barely a whisper. "We have to destroy it." But the book would not be destroyed. When they tried to burn it, the flames recoiled as if repelled by an unseen force. When they buried it, it reappeared on Peter's bedside table that night. Desperate, the children turned to the old church, hoping to find answers in its crumbling walls. Inside the ruins, the air was thick with decay, the faint scent of roses mingling with the stench of death. At the center of the nave lay a stone altar, its surface carved with the same thorn-encircled rose as the book. "Place it there," Annie instructed. As Peter set the book on the altar, the whispers grew louder, rising to a deafening cacophony. The shadows in the corners of the church began to move, coalescing into a single towering figure. Its face was obscured, but its eyes burned like embers. "You woke me," it hissed, its voice a chorus of despair. "And now you shall fall." The children screamed as the figure lunged toward them, but Annie grabbed the book and hurled it into the entity's chest. There was a blinding flash of light, and then silence. When the children opened their eyes, the book and the figure were gone. But the village was not saved. The plague continued, and one by one, the children succumbed to its grasp. Their laughter no longer rang out in the fields, replaced by the mournful silence of an empty village. Years later, travelers passing through would claim to hear faint voices singing in the distance. Ring around the Rosie, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down.
Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. The rhyme played in Mary's mind as she walked through the quiet forest, her fingers brushing against the smooth, white fleece of the lamb at her side. It had been with her for as long as she could remember, a loyal shadow that followed her without question. To the villagers, it was a harmless companion, but Mary knew better. The lamb was not what it seemed. It had appeared on the night of the great fire, when her family's barn burned to the ground. Mary had been only 7, hiding under her bed as the flames consumed the world outside her window. When the fire finally died, she ventured into the smoldering ruins and found it there, untouched by the heat, standing amidst the ashes. Its fleece was pristine, as white as freshly fallen snow. And its eyes, they were dark and endless, holding secrets that whispered to her in her dreams. Years passed, and the lamb never left her side. It grew, but not in the way normal animals did. Its body remained small, delicate, and perfect, but its presence seemed to swell, filling every corner of her life. Wherever Mary went, the lamb was there, watching, waiting. The villagers began to talk. "It's unnatural," old Mrs. Whitlock muttered one day as Mary passed by the market. "That thing's cursed, mark my words." Mary ignored them, but deep down, she knew they were right. The lamb wasn't a blessing, it was a burden. It protected her, yes, but at a cost. The first incident happened when Mary was 12. A boy from the neighboring village, Henry, had teased her relentlessly, pulling her braids and calling her names. One day, he pushed her to the ground in front of a group of laughing children. Mary had cried out, more in frustration than pain, and the lamb appeared. No one saw where it came from. It was simply there, standing between her and the boy. Its dark eyes locked onto Henry, and the boy's laughter turned to choking sobs. He stumbled backward, clutching his chest as though something unseen was crushing him. The others ran, leaving Mary alone with the boy and the lamb. By the time help arrived, Henry was dead, his face frozen in an expression of pure terror. The villagers found no wounds, no signs of what had killed him. After that, they began to fear Mary as much as they feared the lamb. "It's not my fault," Mary whispered one night, staring into the lamb's unblinking eyes. "You did it, not me." The lamb tilted its head, and for a moment she thought she saw a flicker of something in its gaze, pity, perhaps, or amusement. The whispers in her dreams grew louder after that, words she couldn't understand but felt in her bones. They told her things about the villagers, dark secrets she had no way of knowing. And they warned her of danger. When Mary turned 16, the villagers had had enough. A group of men came to her house one night, armed with torches and pitchforks. "We're here for the beast," they said. Mary's mother begged them to leave, but they forced their way inside, dragging Mary from her bed. The lamb stood in the doorway, silent and still, watching as the men dragged her into the yard. "It's you or the creature," one of the men growled. "We'll spare you if you give it up." Mary looked at the lamb, tears streaming down her face. "Go," she whispered. "Please just go." The lamb did not move. Instead, it walked slowly toward her, brushing against her leg. Its fleece felt warm, almost hot, and she realized it was trembling. It won't leave her, one of the men spat. They're bound together. He raised his torch, but before he could strike, the lamb let out a low, guttural sound. The world seemed to shudder, and the shadows around them deepened. The fire from the torches flickered and died, plunging the yard into darkness. Mary heard the screams first. One by one the men fell, their cries echoing into the night. When the light returned, the yard was empty save for Mary and the lamb. The ground was scorched where the men had stood, and the air smelled of sulphur. The next morning, Mary packed her belongings and left the village. The lamb followed, as it always did. They walked together through forests and fields, leaving behind whispers of fear and tales of the girl with the cursed companion. As they disappeared into the horizon, the rhyme began to change. The villagers who survived sang it differently, a warning to keep children away from the ruins where Mary's barn had once stood. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. It followed her to hell and back, and now it'll never go. These chilling tales are just the beginning. If you felt the eerie pull of these dark twists on childhood rhymes, there's so much more waiting for you in the full stories. Don't miss out on the full, spine-tingling narrative. If you enjoyed this, remember to like, subscribe, and join us at Vale of Dark Whispers for more terrifying tales that will haunt your dream. Stay curious and stay in the shadows.